I might fall from a tall building, I might roll a brand new car, 'cause I'm the unknown stuntman that made Redford such a star.
Kody, at what point during the marketing release and or your actual watching of the film The Fall Guy did you realize that it was based on a 1980s TV series?
I don't know if it was anywhere in the marketing because I don't think they said anything about it. I think it was just when people were, I just saw on like, online discourse being like, oh, I'm excited for the Fall Guy. I like the show in the 80s. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I believe it starred Lee Majors, right? That's a name I kind of know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only connection I had. And really, I think it was like days before I saw the movie, I was reading an article and it was like, oh, yeah, based on the 80s TV show. And I didn't even have the experience of hearing anybody say they've watched it or liked it. Like, do you know anybody personally, Kody, with a connection to the Fall Guy? Because, like, sometimes they adapt these TV shows and there's fans, but was the Fall Guy a big hit?
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, where like nobody really like cared about the show maybe in the past, or at least like you said, nobody that we know. Maybe there's a big like fan base that's gonna come after us, so watch out for them.
Bro.
The Fall Guys, I mean, that's an easy fan club too. Yeah, I think it is an interesting thing and definitely something that is obviously related to our episode today. But I think you can take old TV shows and actually make pretty good content. And I mean, even kind of spoiling our reviews a little bit here, I did like this movie, so I'm glad they made it. But again, it's not like a direct adaptation. They're kind of just like taking an IP name, but it's weird when you take an IP name that nobody knows just to try and, get a bigger audience. I think that's strange.
It's a case of like the IP is there solely for the movie to be greenlit by the studio. Like we're to that point where it's like they can't get a movie made unless there's some intellectual property attached to it where they can just be like, "Oh, it was based on an 80s TV show. There's some fan base there." And then not even really use that in the marketing or really even in the story or the plot of the movie. Like the movie, yes, it's about stunt performers, but it's not similar to the plot of the TV show. And the same thing, happens with the Jump Street films as well. So it's really just like you're using it because studios won't make anything original.
Yeah, it is sad, like you said, just the state of kind of Hollywood where it's hard to just get, original stuff greenlit. I feel like that is super sad. If you're adapting something or, like you said, rebooting something, from the 80s or 90s, you probably do have a higher likelihood of just getting it kind of made, which I don't really like, but that's just kind of the way it is. And yeah, I mean, do we even know like what the Fall Guy TV show was originally about?
I mean, it
I've
was about like the guys who were stunt performers in Hollywood.
Okay.
You know, you know
So it's similar
the
conceptually, but obviously, plot wise, I'm sure it has nothing to do with each other. But
shout out to the Alamo Draft House where I went and saw this film. They do the pre-roll that's like specially programmed for the movie that you're seeing, and they actually played the like title sequence to the Fall Guy
oh
before the
wow.
preview. So I got to hear the song and see the opening credits, and they're actually a pretty interesting open credits because it's just like dudes falling down cliffs and it's like real grainy footage. You're like, oh yeah, that dude definitely just fell off a cliff. There's no CGI here, and then that song plays over the end credits as well. So it was a nice little callback when we got to
Mm.
that moment. Kody, you've said you liked the film. I enjoyed it as well. Without spoiling anything, just to kind of get into things, what were the highlights for you?
I mean, it's kind of the name. I mean, this is a movie for stuntmen, about stuntmen, and I appreciate it for that. I think the action and the stunts obviously are pretty amazing and the main focus of the film. I mean, shout out to all the stunt people who kind of worked on this as well. I think it's a weird meta-ness where this movie is very meta, and obviously it's about people making a movie, but also there's other people behind the camera making a movie about them. So it kind of gets lost in translation. And then it's also like a romantic comedy at the same time. That you
Yep.
have this really blunt element. So I feel like it has a lot going on. But I mean, my kind of favorite part about it is definitely the action. I think you had mentioned, I mean, obviously a theme song at the beginning. I love the kind of end credits in this one, where they actually show you like all the super practical stuff that they did. So I feel like, I mean, that was most of the marketing, but that was definitely the thing I enjoyed most about the Fall Guy.
I really had to pee at the end of this movie. End credits start playing. I get up, get out of my seat, head to the back, but I stopped and
Okay.
I stood in the back of the theater and I watched the credits because it is truly a marvel what they were able to do in this movie. David Leitch, the director, a guy who came up as a stunt choreographer at one point, was a Brad Pitt's stunt double. We've talked about him in relation to Chad Stahelski and the John Wick franchise when we did John Wick last season on the pod. And he's a guy who has an appreciation for stunt performers and it really knows how to do it really well. And that's comes across in both the story of this movie and just like the actual, images that are put on screen. It looks incredible. There's a bridge sequence that Ryan Gosling kind of like did his own stunts for, and they really filmed that on a bridge. Like it's not just like digital bullshit. The budget of this movie is very high, and it didn't open to a lot of money. So I hope that it can make it back its money, because even though we talk about this being IP, I feel like it's the most original version of an IP thing we can get. Because like I said, it's an original story wrapped in the Fall Guy TV show. It's a whole new thing, and it's having a lot of fun. I thought the chemistry between Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling was really well done. I think they pair together very well. It's no Emma Stone Ryan Gosling chemistry, but I think it's a good runner up in the age. I don't know, McAdams.
Nah, still out there.
No,
I think
Margot Robbie.
that's probably closer. But yeah, I don't think this is the script, of La La Land with Emma Stone.
No,
So
no.
they probably had an advantage there. But I agree there too. I think just the cast in general was really great. I thought, like you had said, I mean, Blunt and Gosling, obviously the lead too, kind of just like rekindling a relationship that had gone, badly in the past. I thought was a lot of fun. And I thought they did have kind of super visible chemistry, which I thought was awesome. But some of the supporting cast I liked a lot too. Shout out to Winston Duke. I thought he was my favorite of kind of that supporting
Wanted
group.
more of him. Wanted way more.
I do too. And I saw actually that he's kind of campaigning to be Batman in the new DCU. So I would be on board with that. I mean, I guess it's not really spoiler alert, but he definitely kicks some ass in this film. I think there's a lot of people who kick ass in this movie. But yeah, I think he would be awesome as Batman. So James Gunn, get on it, buddy. Drop Dave off. He's done. Winston's coming in.
I like that. Winston Duke is fantastic in this. His role is the movie quote guy. He's always throwing him out there. And there's for you and I, Kody, like guys who know about movies and are kind of nerdy about it. Like if you're interested in the behind the scenes world of Hollywood, this is a movie for you. Like it gets into the weeds of movie making and has both a love and a kind of a gentle fun that it can poke towards it.
Yeah, there's definitely there's a little touch there of just like the kind of negatives of movie making, I think for sure. But I think, I mean, this movie, it was kind of made for us, I feel like it was made for people who are movie fans. Like you said, I mean, Winston Duke literally plays the stunt supervisor, and he's kind of just like dealing with Emily Blunt, the director, and the tension between her and the stuntman. It's literally a movie about making a movie. And they have so many references. I mean, of course, like people who in real life who are making movies, they would probably make a lot of references about other movies. So I feel like in this world it makes sense, but I think the meta-ness maybe is a little bit too much for me at times, even though I do love movies and I love hearing people make references about other movies. So it's tough.
By no means is it a perfect story. It's not going to get nominated for best adapted screenplay at the Oscars, but it was a lot of fun to sit down and see it in the theater, and I would definitely recommend people go check it out. Great date night film. If you're looking for something to do, go check out The Fall Guy.
True. And like you said too, I mean, I don't think too many people saw it opening weekend,
No.
which is sad. So definitely I feel like the word of mouth here should, help improve at least, like you said. I don't want this movie to go full blown bomb here because I think it's not that bad. So definitely go see it if you haven't checked it out. And yeah, support original ideas or original-ish ideas, I guess.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Closest thing we can get. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's tough. Kody, of course, we are talking about today as our main topic another film franchise based on an 80s television series. Hello and welcome back to Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast, the show where two former roommates share 22 thoughts on Jump Street.
You better be ready because you're running out of time. Say jump! Down on Jump Street. Say jump! Down on Jump Street.
I'm your host, Korbin Zvokel, and joining me as always is my co-host, Kody Webb. Kody, this was your choice in movie, but kind of my spin of an idea that I put on it. How are you feeling about this today?
My name's Jeff. I am very excited. We are back in season 7, 6 seasons in another season, and back for the second episode. I'm very excited. Like you had said, got my pick here, and we're going different format, which I love off the bat for a new season. I don't think I could be more excited, really. It's going to be a fun episode, and I think there's a ton to talk about with these two movies and, of course, the old rebooted show. So I'm pumped, man.
So we both rewatched 21 and 22 Jump Street, and for the very first time, we went and checked out one episode of the classic 1987 Johnny Depp starring 21 Jump Street. Kody, let's start with the very first thought of the day. 22 thoughts on Jump Street. Number one, let's talk about the TV show.
You're the man, you're number one.
Yeah. And if you notice this month too, this is our replacement for First Friday 5. So shout out TV in general. But yeah, this was the first time I had seen any sort of content from the original, like you said, 80s TV show, obviously starring Johnny Depp, a very young Johnny Depp. And I mean, the basic synopsis, because I don't know if many people have seen this. Basically, it's similar to the movie. Johnny Depp is a police officer, straight out of the academy, top of his class, of course. And he's having some trouble, in the field because he's just too young. People are kind of taking advantage of him. His partner's really old. His partner is actually Jerry Seinfeld's dad from Seinfeld. Any Seinfeld fans out there?
Mr. Seinfeld.
But obviously, he just gets recruited to this Jump Street division to go undercover at high school, which is obviously similar to the movie. But I think that's where the similarities stop, really, is just like the overlying plot line of, you have younger cops going into, younger environments and trying to, catch people in the act. I didn't really like the show, if I'm being honest. It is like super, super 80s. So I'm sure there are kind of the kids growing up with the show did enjoy it a lot. And also, I just don't like Johnny Depp that much. So
Yeah.
Those are my basic thoughts. What do you think about the pilot?
Yeah, I agree. It's very tonally different. It's dark, it's gritty, it's very focused on the idea of crime prevention and like the cops versus the thugs and the bad guys. Feels very like post-war on drugs and intense
It takes
stuff.
itself very seriously.
It takes itself very seriously. Exactly. It has no fun with it. And of course, we only watched the first episode. So over 5 seasons, I'm sure it probably develops into something. But yeah, I don't really like this version of 21 Jump Street. Like you said, Johnny Depp, it is weird to see him in a role like this, playing like super hard-nosed, like stickler cop. Like this guy doesn't have any fun at all. It's strange.
Yeah. And it's funny too, like every time somebody just has a comment about how young he looks, he just like freaks out and has like an anger rage attack at everybody. So shout out to Johnny. I mean,
He
like you
was
said,
24 at the time of that first season.
he does look pretty damn young. So I mean, shout out to him there. But yeah, it's kind of the thing that'll carry over. And would people actually believe that, these older guys are going into high school? It's tough. It's a fun topic, which we'll get into, but I think it is just interesting that, this is what spawned kind of this fun action comedy franchise, is just kind of a random, like you said, sort of a hardcore cop drama in the 80s. I mean, not really. It's about like the premise is stupid enough where like the younger generation can connect to it. But like I said, I mean, they take themselves so seriously. I don't think Johnny Depp smiles like one time throughout the episode. Other than he's cracking some jokes to his captain maybe a couple times. But like his dad's dead, his partner's old and doesn't want anything to do with him. He's broken a couple of his other partners, both of their nose already in the field.
Yeah, that was
Stupid stuff. But yeah, it's Johnny's not having a fun time and he needs a new job basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also feels like a show that very much is using like people's fears to market itself and to sell itself and to get people to watch it. Like the opening scene of this is like these three guys break into a house and hold a family at gunpoint and like make them give up their car. And it's like the high school student. It's very intense and like it seems like that's going to be a little bit of an overarching story over at least the first few episodes here. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that this is something, I don't know, over the course of like cop TV shows. It's very interesting to see it in the lineage, but I much prefer this meta jokey Channing Tatum Hill led movie, which leads me into my number 2 thought of the day here, Kody.
Item number 2.
Is this the best TV show to movie of all time? Now, I'll throw a couple at you, and I know you might have some disagreements here, but you've got like the Charlie's Angels movie, Starsky and Hutch, Chips, The A-Team, Addams Family, and of course, Star Trek started as a TV show and became a movie. What do you think? Is this the best version? I would say yes.
It's a good argument, and I wouldn't argue against you too hard in saying yes. I mean, there's so many just adaptations. See, another one like MASH, I guess is a classic one. Shout out Community, that should be coming out soon. But yeah, it's difficult. I think that's the thing too. Like out of all the ones you just named, there's really not too many successful ones. I mean, of course, my lineage would go straight towards Star Trek. Shout out Star Trek '09, the greatest reboot and the greatest Star Trek movie of all time. But I think I don't know. I mean, from a comedy standpoint, I would say definitely. But I mean, out of that list you just gave, other than Star Trek, these movies are absolutely at the top of my list.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Shout out to Ian. When are we doing an Alvin and the Chipmunks spot? That's
I think it's coming soon. Probably the Squeakquel though, right? Or Chipwreck? I don't know.
I like
I
like Ian in the bird costume.
The bird costume where they
it's
wouldn't.
tough.
I saw a TikTok clip recently where they told him like he had to be the guy in the bird costume. They wouldn't let him not be there for the movie.
Couldn't be anybody else.
He was
Yeah.
trying to shoot something else. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The Ben 10 movie, that was a classic. One of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, like animation too. I feel like that'd be maybe a different subgenre. Because you go like Teen Titans Go movie. Like most of those are like kids movies, those I feel like, which are always hard to grade. But I feel like from a live action standpoint, like I said, I mean, Charlie's Angels is kind of similar tone, I guess, just like dumb comedy. Same with Starsky's and Hutch. I don't really like the A-Team reboot at all, if I'm being honest.
Shout out to Bradley
Like,
Cooper.
no, it had a good cast. Yeah, I mean, Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper.
Charlton Copley.
True, I don't like him. Who's the other guy? Who's Mr. T? What's his name? Oh, some fighter or something. Shit.
It's Quentin Rampage Jackson.
Yeah, Rampage. Well, I guess I thought it was somebody else. But I like that main core cast. But that movie kind of just sucks. I feel like it's I don't know, it doesn't know what it is almost. But these Jump Street movies, they kind of nail the tone, I think. And we'll get into a ton of details on kind of meta-ness and the fun tone, but they really just know what kind of movie they are in. And I think all those other ones you kind of mentioned, they're trying to be different things. They're trying to be the TV show, they're trying to be an homage. This movie doesn't really care about that, and it just does its own thing, which I think is what makes it successful.
I think it was the perfect confluence of being far enough away from the source material, both in time and in like popularity, and also just in tone, that they were able to create something that was new, inventive, and interesting. Reboots are tough, Kody.
True. And yeah, because I kind of said it, but we can go on to
my dear number 3.
thought number 3, which kind of leans into that. And it's just my thinking of like reboots can be very, very effective, even if they have nothing to do with the source material. And I guess in the example of the Fall Guy too, if no one cares about the source material too, they can still be good. But it's kind of just like taking that concept and then doing it better, which I think that's what I was trying to say with this Jump Street franchise. It took that Johnny Depp concept of, older cops going into high school and trying to crack some cases, but it just does it 10 times better. It knows what kind of movie it is. It has so much fun. The cast is great. Like I said, it doesn't really have anything to do with the series, but it does homage the original series. And it kind of does both in that too, where if you did like the show growing up, you're going to like this movie probably because it has a few references. But if you know nothing about the show, which I think was obviously us going into these movies, you can still really enjoy them too. So I think that is kind of the nice thing about reboots. Everybody always kind of, hates on reboots. But I think for certain scenarios, if like the IP it's coming off of isn't, so loved, it's actually a really good idea.
This is an obvious thing to say, but if you make a movie that is good, regardless of if the IP that existed before it existed, it like you're gonna have a successful reboot or sequel or franchise. Like that is what makes these effective. You have two charismatic leads. You have a good directorial duo in Phil Lord and Chris Miller, as well as people that can write funny comedy, and you get a successful story. And then when you go to make the sequel, you're also smart enough to know that there's something a little bit dirty about making the sequel and inherently gross about it. So you have to accept that and fold that meta-ness into it without going too far. And I think at the time it came out, it was perfect, and it was the perfect version of a reboot that you could do by just making a good quality movie.
Yeah, it's a good point. I guess I'm kind of just saying, I wish people would just make, better movies. Yeah, you don't always have to be based off anything, but if you have the right team, like you said, I mean, Lord and Miller, I think is the perfect kind of pairing for the source material, and I think they knocked it out of the park. So shout out to them. But yeah, just make better movies, Hollywood. That's all I'm asking for. It's not that hard.
And that leads right into my fourth point here.
The rule of love number 4.
If the jokes are good and the characters are fun, then the story can be kind of dumb. People are going to accept it. You can have this high school setup in the first movie that doesn't make any sense, where the kids are going to classes at random times and there's a play happening in the middle of the school day. And like, you could just like let all that go if the movie is fun. We always do the good, the bad, the ugly. We talk about our flaws. Sometimes we have to get nitpicky. I'm sure we would get nitpicky about that kind of stuff in these movies. But the truth of the matter is, it's still fun time to watch because the jokes are good.
And there's another one in 21 where the first time they take drugs and they meet up with Rob Riggle in the hallway for the first time, and they're both like tripping like crazy, but like it doesn't make sense. Like, why would he like sign their passes saying like it was okay when they're like, clearly tripping balls in front of them and like are sticking their tongues out and just saying stupid stuff? But like I said, I mean, if the comedy plays, that's the only important thing. Like the context or like what is actually going on in the scene, I don't think that really matters, especially in movies like this. And we'll get at the very end, like, are the plots of these movies even good? But like you said, sometimes that doesn't really matter. That doesn't make a comedy good, I think, in most cases. And I think this franchise does it so well in like doing campy, over the top bits. But they need to land. That is the thing. Like you can always try to land a bit, but I think the director pair here has a pretty good eye for kind of comedy in general. So like I said, I think they were a perfect choice for this franchise.
It definitely worked out in the end, and you have a ton of iconic moments that kind of exist throughout the franchise.
Yeah, and going on to point number 5.
All right, this is number 5 on our list.
Thought number 5, whatever. There's a ton of I feel like cultural relevance, and you use the words permanence, which is big time diction there. So shout out.
Permeation. There's a cultural permeation. It has gone, especially at the time. I feel like you and I, middle schoolers, it was deep in there.
Oh, absolutely. I think basically, I guess talking about I had a theater experience with 22 Jump Street, actually. One of the first ones I remember at, and I actually went with my brother because it was R-rated, and he's like, "Oh, I'll buy your ticket." I think I was like a freshman in high school. I don't know, but
2014, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this movie I feel like definitely stuck in my cultural zeitgeist. I mean, I said the iconic line off the top of "My name's Jeff," and he's inking in my mouth. There's so many iconic lines, I feel like, in the second one that really did stick in the cultural, like you said, permeance altogether. What do you want to call it? So I think there's a ton of fun scenes, but just like certain sound bits from especially 22, I feel like have stayed in culture, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, not as much 21, but I was a kid who didn't see either of these movies. Like you said, rated R. My brother didn't take me to see him. But like I knew about "My name is Jeff," the slam poetry scene, like all this stuff, because like people around school would just like quote that shit or say it incessant, or there'd be like, "Oh, I can do the entire slam poetry from 22 Jump Street, like Jesus died for our Cynthias," So it really did have a grip on our generation, and especially the generation above us. I think a big part of that is is Vine. Kody, big Vine user back in the day.
I was a big Vine guy. I feel like Vine is one of the most underrated social media platforms of all time. Just with, I mean, similar, obviously 6-second videos. You had to be giving very good like sound bits or sound quotes to kind of go viral on Vine. And I think, I mean, the ones we've all mentioned, even that slam poetry, that's like cutting that up into 6 seconds would be kind of instant success on Vine. So yeah, shout out Vine. We need to bring that back. Why is it not come back?
I mean, TikTok exists is the answer.
Vine's better, 100%.
You're sounding very old, and that leads right into my next point, Kody.
And finally, number 6.
This is a bit of a prime millennial movie, and of course, you and I are Gen Z, so we can claim that, luckily. But like released in 12 and 14, 2012 and 2014. I think my brother graduated high school in 2012. Is this the prime representation of millennial high school to you? Do you think there's another movie that is representing that time period better?
It's tough. I feel like especially in this era, maybe they made a little bit less like high school movies than they had like in the 80s and the 90s, especially
Because it definitely doesn't feel like my high school experience. I don't know about you.
Oh,
Like,
no.
it feels definitely earlier. It is of a time.
Yeah, I think we were a little bit past this for sure. But I think it's cool too, just like in kind of the two cultures combating each other of these two older guys going back and not even knowing like what is going on in the school anymore. They're so out of touch with kind of where the world has come
The
in.
old millennial versus the young millennial.
Yeah.
The struggle.
Yeah, and even the one strap, two strap backpack bit is amazing. Channing's rules of, if anybody steps on you, deck them in the face on the first day. And it's kind of the reversal of the roles, which is really cool. Where Jonah Hill was lame in high school, and now he's actually cool because it's cool to be caring and accepting of other people, which obviously Channing is not big on. So I think it is a cool kind of cultural representation, kind of just showing each side of it. As in the college side of it too, I think is cool, just because I mean it shows party culture and like frat culture, but I don't think it really has as much to say on it as the first movie. I think it's just like, everybody kind of knows this is college. But I think they, honestly, out of the two, I think they represented college probably a little bit better than they did high school. But like I said, it was a different time, so it's hard to tell.
The college representation in 22 made me feel more nostalgic for a time. Like watching 21, I'm not like, oh yeah, this really reminds me of high school, and like it's just like whatever. But like 22 I was like, okay, yeah, like there's a couple things. It's like, oh yeah, I kind of miss parts of college. Like I see stuff in this, but also like the spring break is so like plug and play, copy paste, generic spring break 2014, or really more, it's like spring break 2010.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Even the sunglasses, like the shirts they're wearing, I feel like is
Look at your background.
still a great look though. But yeah, I think it's a fun representation of the way though. And I guess we can keep moving along to thought number 7.
Right behind number 7.
I mean, we're kind of gonna go all over the place. I feel like this kind of is the first one to do that, but
This is very spring break related, I'll say.
yeah, true. I think it's just interesting, like the sort of lens that it puts on like drug use and sort of modern drug culture. Off the bat, actually, in the first one of my favorite scenes is just the video of the kid taking the drug, and Channing and Jonah are just eating it up. Like, oh, I could watch this kid all day. And then Ice Cube like slams it down. He's like, yeah, he's dead. So I think it like takes a comedic approach sometimes, but then also it does have that underlying seriousness of like, this stuff, is harmful and could be bad for you. But I mean, it continues a ton in 22. And also, I guess going back to 21 for a second too, but I mean, they bring like a whole block of, marijuana to like the high school party. So I feel like it's like the older generation, like understanding and, this is something more common than even like those old boomers who are our bosses and stuff. Like they don't get it. So I just think, the use and sort of the lens on drugs is pretty interesting for, 2010 movies at least.
Yeah, I mean, especially in comparison to the original TV series, like it is so drastically different in the approach it takes, and that is all about the fact that it's 30 years have passed in the world's view on drugs, and especially like marijuana use is drastically changed. Even in the first movie, they take the drug. What's the first one? It's Wi-Fi in the second movie. What's
I don't know. It's some unrecognizable acronym. I feel like in the second one they did a great job too with Wi-Fi. That's like the most memorable drug in like a new drug, at least in a movie, I feel like in a while. But like you said, I mean, they're literally tripping in the hallways. We already talked about with the Rob Riggle scene. And I feel like that scene specifically where like Rob Riggle's head turns into like an ice cream cone, or that he's like a big dog, and then his like eyebrows are moving around on his face. Like that stuff's great. And then even in the second one, when they're tripping on Wi-Fi again, when they accidentally ate some brownies or cookies or something.
Rice
Like it's
Krispie
another
treats.
Rice Krispie treat. I do like Rice Krispie treats. But it's another good scene. I feel like where Jonah Hill has a bad trip and Channing Tatum has a good trip, and he's kind of like holding him down almost, which is relevant to the plot. So I feel like they use both of kind of the tripping scenes pretty well, which is fun too.
I will say that those drug scenes are where like Phil Lord and Chris Miller get to be like, hey, we're animators. We get to cook a little bit and have some fun with all the extra multimedia, different forms
Everything.
of stuff they add into the scenes that are always great.
True. Shout out animation.
We are on number 8.
They're playing high schoolers, Cody. This is 21 Jump Streets. The conceit, especially like we said, Johnny Depp is 24 in the original show, and he looks young. He does play the high school role well. Do Tatum and Hill work as high schoolers for you? I'm going to say no, but I'll throw it over to you.
I mean, I would definitely agree. You definitely have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, the interesting concept they use is like Channing Tatum got held back a few years, which that kind of makes sense. Like I could see him being like a super senior or something crazy and just trying to, skate by and graduate. But I feel like Jonah Hill specifically, and they touch on this in the movies too, but he definitely looks a lot older, I feel like, than everybody else kind of on screen. And I mean, he looks like a narc, he sounds like a narc. So I don't know if he's that believable of like actually doing a successful job in this job, because he does look very old.
No, this is all love to Jonah Hill, but he lost a lot of weight for this movie. And I think especially in the second one, I think that's part of why he looks a little bit older, is because, he was a bigger guy. When you take away, there's just some more wrinkles and crow's feet. And it's unfortunate. I think he looks great. He looks fit, but that definitely plays into why he looks a little bit older in the second movie, especially. Can you guess the ages of Tatum and Hill at the time of the first film?
I'd say they're both about 25. I'd say like 25, 26.
Jonah Hill was 28,
Oh my
27, 28 when filming,
Okay.
and Channing Tatum was 31, 32 when they filmed the first movie.
I mean, shout out to Channing. He looks absolutely immaculate for 30 years old, especially in the first one. But I feel like too, even like the 2 year difference between these movies, and I assume they shot them like pretty close to each other. Like I feel like they do age a little bit from the first one to the second one. So I mean, it took a while to age, but I guess we got them at the exact mark when it was going to happen. I mean, they do look pretty good for 28 and 31 or whatever. But I don't think, obviously it's believable, but that's okay. That's why it's a fun movie.
Something that I think they do effectively is that like Dave Franco and Brie Larson, who are playing like the regular high school students, are obviously older than high school kids too. So like they don't even, like, in comparison, they don't look that much older than them, but they're also full adults. How old do you think Brie Larson was?
No, what year is it? 2012? I don't know. She's got to be like 23, maybe
She
24.
was 22, 21, 22.
Okay.
And then Dave Franco,
I bet he's older, like 25.
yeah, 25, 26. So I was thinking like they're playing, 17, 18-year-olds or 18-year-olds. It's made very clear.
Yeah, I guess
in the
that is
movie.
that's good casting though. It's like in comparison casting. If you have that main duo, just find people like a few years younger than them. They don't actually have to be high school students. So I think that is fun. Shout out to Kathy from The Office as one of their friends too. I think she's pretty old in this as well. But yeah, there's a lot of old people in high school. Maybe it's just a slower community.
And then last one for you. How old do you think Ice Cube was?
I don't know. I mean, when were they big? I mean, he's big in the 90s, I guess. I don't know, like 60, 62.
Now or then?
I don't know. I can't judge. I wasn't around when he was like big. Well, he was big in the 90s. So
Well,
maybe
yeah.
like
So Ice Cube was,
45.
but he was like really young when he was doing NWA. Like that was,
Okay.
yeah. He's only 54 now.
I was in between. All right.
But he was 32 at the time,
He was 32 in this movie?
or he was 42. Sorry,
I was gonna say, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Shout out Cube. He looks pretty good too.
Cody. there's an old man who also makes an appearance at the end of this film.
Is it the number 9?
Like I mentioned, just going back to the TV show here, Johnny Depp does show up here in a fun cameo role. I mean, he's actually in the movie a decent amount. You just don't realize it's him until the very end. But he's just a part of this kind of biker gang who these two guys obviously have a run-in with at the park, which is their original kind of stationing, which is really fun with them on the bikes and kind of just being a really lame duo after they graduate the academy. And then at the end, right when they get made, right when Jonah and Channing get made, Johnny Depp comes out of nowhere and starts ripping up all this makeup. He's got, fake beard, fake mustache, fake nose, fake ears. He's got it all, man. And he was deep undercover. Obviously, I think it's just like, I don't know how the show left off, obviously, but maybe it's just like, oh, they went on to a different division and, a different undercover division, since obviously he would have a lot of experience there. And he's been riding with these guys. He played the saxophone for this guy, his sister's wedding, which is obviously a reference to the show because for some reason he plays saxophone, which is really stupid. And then, I mean, this was my favorite part. I want to hear your thoughts, Corbin, but I mean, he gets mowed down at the end. He gets shot directly through the neck. Him and his boy, I think I don't know who it is because Grieco's, I think, in the second one. I don't even know who the other guy is.
Peter
but
DeLuce, who was also, in the original.
was he in the pilot?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But shout out to Depp. I mean, it's fun, I think, especially if you're a TV lover. And even if, like, when we first watched these, I didn't know he was in the originals. I was like, oh, that's a kind of a fun, cameo for Johnny Depp. He just comes in and gets shot in the last couple scenes. So I thought it was okay. I'm not a big fan of Johnny in general, but
Well,
what
yeah.
are your thoughts?
Also not a huge fan personally, or really even as an actor. He's never been like, I'm not a huge Pirates guy. And then like outside of that, what do you got for me, buddy? What's eating Gilbert Grape? Oringo. Apparently Depp wanted his character to die, and that's like why it happened. But there's also a deleted scene on the Blu-ray where it's shown that they survive. So, ooh.
I mean, I don't know how, but he got shot in the neck.
I like it. I think it's funny. It is basically like the Deus Ex Machina of the movie. Like, I mean, again, they do get killed, but like they come in and shake things up so that they can survive and win in the end. And really, if it's not like, oh, we're the undercover DE agents, they don't have any way out of that final situation.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Scooby-Doo moment too, where he's like, oh, revealing the mask or whatever. Or I guess a Mission Impossible moment. But yeah, I think it's fun, but it definitely could have been left on the cutting room floor, and I wouldn't have been too mad either. But also, he just loves makeup, I think, Johnny, a little bit too much. Another good one, he was Edward Scissorhands, wasn't he? I mean, that's a good movie.
That's true.
That's probably about it.
Sweeney Todd.
I don't really like the Pirates movies. I don't know. I'm a hater. Good score, but yeah, I'm out. I'm out on the Pirates.
I watched them young and I never understood what was happening. I think I couldn't understand Johnny. Like I need subtitles. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't like them. Pirates.
Maybe a rewatch on subtitles will help you out.
Maybe one day.
Welcome to number 10.
The billing, Cody. I always love to get into this, and as we're here at point 10, let's talk about how these movies are credited. So, 21 Jump Street, Jonah Hill, lead build, then Channing Tatum, Brie Larson, Dave Franco, Rob Riggle, and then you get a with Ice Cube. So
I like that point a lot. I think maybe Brie Larson is a little too high, but I mean the with Ice Cube I think is absolutely free. So I love that. But I mean past the main duo, like it's hard to I think categorize, but I would probably put Dave in front of Brie. It's tough though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Dave Franco is obviously the like main drug dealer guy in the case of the series, but Brie Larson I think is a little bit of a bigger star. What's Dave done yet at this point? Nothing. Just be James's little brother.
What has Brie done? Scott Pilgrim and Room come out yet? I definitely don't think so.
I actually forgot at the end, DeRay Davis also, who plays the guy with the eye patch. Gets lead card billing.
Shout out to him. I thought he was fun in the movie, but I don't know what else he's been in. I feel like probably not a lot.
Semi-pro?
Okay. Yeah. Movie's okay. Shout out Jackie Moon. I steal his headband pretty often. But I think the casting of this kind of young duo of Dave and Bree is definitely pretty good in hindsight. So shout out to the casting director. Definitely got some good young talent. But the billing is always interesting, and maybe that just means Brie got paid a little bit more than Dave, which is I like to see that. She deserves it.
Split cards goes. First one is Ellie Kempler is on there.
Mhm.
She splits it with Parnell and Aaron. And then the third split card is a fun one. It's Dax Flame, Jake Johnson, Nick Offerman in that order.
Ooh.
So that's
Oh,
a
is
great
Dax-
shout.
I can't believe Dax Flame got that high, but
We will talk more about Dax Flame shortly, but
Jake Johnson is, I think this might be my favorite role of his in any movie. Obviously great in New Girl, but he's not in a ton of movies. And he has a very, very small role, but he's absolutely hilarious, I think, in this. And Offerman the same. He only has what, like 1 or 2 scenes
well,
per
that's
movie?
the thing. Jake Johnson and Nick Offerman, I think, legitimately both have one scene. Like, I think there's like they're in an office, they came to a closed set, they filmed one scene as their cameo roles, and
Well,
they're
Jake, he
slightly
comes
below
at the
flame.
end. He comes at the end when they mess up the play. He runs in and, oh, you're expelled. But I mean, the standout scenes, both those scenes are, like I said, a couple of my favorite in the first one though. So shout out to Offerman. I mean, just comedically, I feel like that guy is pretty untouchable as well.
And then for the second movie, it's very similar. You've got Hill and Tatum, and then Peter Stormare, who we have not really talked about,
Yeah.
kind of the main bad guy, Ghost. And then Wyatt Russell, Amber Stevens, Jillian Bell, who plays Mercedes, the
Right.
roommate, and then and Ice Cube for this movie.
Big mix up.
Changing it up.
No Jimmy Tatro either. That's disrespectful.
Well, just wait. Then a split card of the Lucas brothers. So Keith and Kenny Lucas,
Right.
the two twins with
Yang.
Nick Offerman. They share the card with Nick Offerman. And then the next one is Jimmy Tatro. And then a couple, Carolyn Aaron, like who's his mom, Craig Roberts, who plays Spencer, and then Mark Evan Jackson, who plays like the philosophy professor, Dr. Murphy, who's in like a bunch of other stuff.
A lot of just small roles in the second one too, but I think the cast is, well, I don't know. I think the cast might be a little bit better in the first one. I feel like the supporting roles in the second one are like not as memorable. Like, and some of these actors just aren't as good, maybe. I do like Wyatt Russell and kind of his inclusion, but I feel like billing wise, the big thing there is a with to an and, I think, for Ice Cube. So shout out to him. He deserved a bigger paycheck for the second one. You know, his whole setup got upgraded. I'm sure his paycheck got upgraded as well, and the guy deserves it. Shout out to him. I mean, that scene, I guess this is cutting into something I'd say later, but that scene where he finds out about Jonah Hill sleeping with his daughter, and just like the green beans specifically, are we rationing green beans? Just grabs them, starts
Throws a
throwing
tantrum.
them. Yeah, just from a physical comedy, I think that's probably my favorite sort of bit from either movie.
I think the side characters are all really great. So I'll just let's move things around, Cody. I'll throw it over to you. Let's talk about the side characters.
Number 11, yeah.
And I mean, we already mentioned a couple of them, but I think the side characters are so elite in this movie. I already mentioned my favorite off the bat in the first one, which is Jake Johnson. I think just that opening scene of, I already mentioned Channing punching a kid in the parking lot, and then Jake Johnson coming in and be like, yo, like we just had, somebody die recently. You guys are rolling it on the first day, starting fights already. I'm not messing around. And also just like, I think the one line is like, somebody just died of drugs, and me and everybody else in the school are doing absolutely nothing about it. Like, he's just showing he does not care. Like I said, I think in a movie role for him, it's definitely one of my favorites. Tons of other small ones to run through here as well, but mentioned Ice Cube. I mean, that's more of just like a bigger supporting role. Nick Offerman, we said too, is amazing. I believe you put down Patton Oswalt in the second one. Just the one scene of
I had to shout that out. It felt reminiscent of the Parks and Rec, the classic. He just has a moment where he's doing a lecture in a class and he gets to have some fun. I genuinely believe a lot of it is probably improv.
Yeah, it's a great moment too, because it's a teacher just like singling out Channing Tatum. It's a teacher singling out Channing Tatum directly and being like, "What are you doing with your life? Like, stop pretending to be somebody else." And then Channing's so dumb, like he kind of doesn't get it. But Patton is just like kind of talking to himself the entire time, which I think is really entertaining. And then the two others from 22 that I really love are Jimmy Tatro and Mr. Russell, Wyatt Russell himself, obviously Kurt Russell's kid. I mean, when I saw the movie originally, obviously I had no idea who either of those guys were. But I mean, in hindsight, again, similar to the first one with Dave and Bree, I mean, those two have done pretty well for themselves. Obviously, Tatro more on the comedian side, and then Wyatt. I mean, he's in a ton of stuff. MCU, that terrible Apple TV show that I haven't seen. I'm sure it's not terrible.
Godzilla, people like that. Monarch, King of the Monsters, or what is
Monarch's
it?
kind of a cool build. Yeah, nobody's seen it, but it's probably good. I mean, he's working with his dad. But I think those two in 22 are definitely my favorite two kind of side characters. Just such massive frat bro vibes. And on the football team too, I love Channing running over Tatro on walk on day, and right before that, Tatro was like screaming at all the little skinny kids. So he's good in that role, and I think just all the side characters are pretty awesome in this franchise.
Wyatt Russell, also great hair in the movie, fantastic. And I wanted to shout out Dakota Johnson for a great performance in the first movie as well. Just absolutely talking shit the whole time, telling Tatum and Hill that they're terrible at their jobs.
Yeah, she is great. Also, her like partner, we forgot in the quotable section talk about finger popping each other's ass. That's one of the most quotable lines as well. But yeah, basically all Dakota does is just talk shit and then just makes out with Channing at the end. So shout out to her too.
And then of course,
Number 12.
the most iconic man, the most iconic side character from 21 Jump Street, played by Dax Flame, is Zach. I mentioned he split the card with Nick Miller and Ron Swanson in the first movie. He doesn't even get a card in the second film, and I don't even think he gets to speak. It's kind of crazy. He's a of those nerds, he's like the highest billed one in the first movie, and then in this one they both get to have speaking lines and he's just there in the background. For those of you who are maybe not online or aware of what's going on here, Dax Flame, he was in the movie Project X. He was in 21 and 22 Jump Street. I think some other smaller projects. But he has an interesting online social media persona and kind of page that he's built up. Kody, how much of this have you seen?
I've seen the majority of it. I mean, I am definitely on, the Jump Street TikTok sort of trend and stuff. But yeah, definitely an interesting guy just off the bat. Like I said, I like him a lot in Project X as well. And then in the first movie here in this franchise, like I thought he's decent. He's a fun kind of, just offbeat character.
He's got to play off Tatum a bunch. I mean, that's kind of, I'm
Yeah.
sure, intimidating. I think he was pretty young at the time. He'd be like, all right, here's Channing Tatum.
I
Teach
think
him
that
chemistry.
those core nerds in Tatum actually have pretty good chemistry too. So shout out to him in the first one.
Covalent bonds, Kody. Come on now.
Yeah, and he's the H2O guy at the beginning. He's kind of like the intro to the whole class altogether, which is fun. Philly Kemper. But yeah, the second one, I feel bad for him too. I mean, like you said, he was pretty highly billed in the first, and then going from that highly billed to 0 lines. Maybe he, did something to a producer that they didn't like or something. But I feel like the other nerd guy, the other white guy, definitely outshines him. I mean, he has that one line at the end where they all pop out with like automatics, and he's like, "We are here too," just like doing a kind of meta, not very fun like pop out line. So I feel bad for the kid, but his TikToks are definitely interesting. I feel like the origination of it too is like people were starting like little fan base pages, just like kind of including him in this. I even saw one where it's like the classic TikTok thing where it's like, guess who the actor is? And they put like 3 or 4 movies up, and one of them was Dax Flame, and everyone was like, "Let's go! Shout out Dax!" And then I feel like he started posting on TikTok a lot more, and you've delved deep into that. I mean, he's doing some weird stuff out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone could do a genuine like documentary, like deep dive on what's going on here. Is it performance art? Is it who he is? Is it a character? Like there's so many layers to it, and so much like the meta within itself. And like you see videos where he like goes up to people and he's like, "I'm Dax Flame from Project X and I'm giving you $1." Like it is truly something that could not have existed in a different time, in a different world. It's very much of the internet age of TikTok. And if you try to explain it to somebody like we are here, like we just sound like idiots. Like we don't know what we're talking about. So the best thing I can say is go on TikTok, search Dax Flame, watch a couple videos, see him in interviews. Like it is a 24/7, 365 thing.
Yeah, I think another good comparison too would just be like a more kind of new age Nathan Fielder. Like just like
Yeah.
super awkward comedy standpoint. And I mean, when you say like maybe it's a character, I don't know. I think the kid's just kind of a weirdo. It's very, very interesting. I think the kid the kid is a star in my book, and I do want to see him kind of,
Oh, he's
reemerge.
coming back. We're waiting. There's a
God
day.
damn.
The leading performance is coming. Dax Flame.
Somebody
And
just
I'll
needs to
be
give
there.
him like his own reality show. Just one of these terrible streaming services. Give Dax Flame a chance, man. He deserves it, and he's getting views on TikTok. So I think maybe it could be upcoming. So shout out to him. But yeah, like you said, I mean, just us describing it, I feel like if you don't know who this kid is, you're probably a bit lost. So definitely check out his content, and you'll probably understand a little bit better. But
My king, Dax Flame.
knight him. Moving on, I think we've hit past the halfway point here.
Oh, lucky number 13.
Lucky number 13, so shout out. But I think this movie's fun because it takes a spin on the classic sort of buddy cop, genre trope. There's so many. I mean, obviously, even in the 80s, it was massive with, my boy Danny Glover and Mel Gibson, Lethal Weapon. There's been so many ones since. The Nice Guys is one of my favorite ones in New Age. But they really take a different, obviously, turn on it. I mean, there's tons of, comedy ones too. But I feel like with this one, just the chemistry that the two have is really, really cool. And kind of what I was saying earlier, they kind of just like balance each other out really well. Obviously, Channing is definitely the brawn here, definitely not the brains of the operation, but they diverge in different directions, especially in the first one, 21, where Channing, even though he is kind of the buff guy, he goes into the nerdy section and he kind of nerds out with his bros. And then, I mean, like we said, Jonah Hill kind of becomes a cool kid, reemerging in high school, which I think is fun. So they definitely play off each other really well. Super sharp. I think Channing is underrated as well, just as a comedic presence. I think he gives me similar vibes to like Dave Bautista in the Guardians movie. Just like this big hulking guy you wouldn't expect to be funny, but his line delivery, I feel like, is always really good. And then I'll talk more about Jonah later, but I think he's a bit of a comedic genius. Obviously, I think he had a lot of kind of input into the writing process and a lot of the jokes. So shout out to him with all of that. But I think from a buddy cop, chemistry perspective, this is one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, I think their dynamic is what really makes or breaks this movie for sure. And they are both hilarious. Channing Tatum, like you said, he's the handsome hot guy. Like he's the heartthrob, Magic Mike, he is fantastic in those movies, and what he does there is very successful. I'll give him that. But like, you wouldn't say because he's good in that he could be good in this movie whatsoever. And he can do it both, and that is truly impressive. And Jonah Hill, we've done other episodes, War Dogs, we've talked about him. He is really good in this, and like you said, he was such a creative driving force behind making this happen that you can't not acknowledge that fact. I'll shout out two for you, Judy Hobbs and Nick Wilde from Zootopia. Not really a cop pairing, but he
Eventually.
does become a cop at the end of the movie, right? Yeah. So yeah,
The sequel,
that's my favorite buddy cop pairing.
they'll have a full movie of them being partners.
Yeah,
So
I think
excited
so.
for that.
So we're
Yeah.
coming. And then not really a comedy movie, but one of my favorite duos, Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena in End of Watch. Iconic comedy duo.
That's a good one too. I feel like there's so many out there, but yeah, shout out Jakey G. I still going back to our Prisoners episode. I wish he had a partner in that, because that would be great as well. But yeah, I feel like any sort of serious kind of film, there are probably like 10 more that we can name off pretty easily. But I guess Bad Boys is another one coming out this summer too that you could easily compare it to.
Martin and Will, yeah.
But Jonah Hill over Martin Lawrence all day, no doubt. Yeah.
Man, that trailer, they're Martin Lawrence, they're just making him eat food, making him fat stuff.
I'm not seeing it. Yeah, no shot.
Bad Boys for Life should have been the fourth movie, not the third one. That's what I'll say.
Peter, it's number 14.
Oh, 14.
Ice Cube. I don't really have a lot of like opinions on this because Ice Cube can do whatever he wants, but I just think it is kind of funny to be like Ice Cube, the guy known for being an NWA and helping, write and rap the song "Fuck the Police," plays a police officer in this film whose like job is solely to like go undercover and infiltrate like drug operations. And I think that's just like hey man, you can make your money however you want and you can live your life, and you're a lot better at of a dude than me. But I do think it is just something to acknowledge at the very least.
Honestly, I never even thought of that. Yeah, it's pretty ironic. 'Cause like I said, I didn't really, I wasn't a big NWA guy obviously growing up. I mean, I was too young, I feel like, for
Yeah.
us. Not born yet, which would help. But that is pretty funny. I mean, obviously he is very iconically known for not liking the police so much. And him now being in this movie, like the prototypical like angry, black captain is what he says specifically, is a really interesting turn. And especially with like history in mind. Do you think Eazy-E was not too happy when this movie came out, or what do you think their reaction was?
I don't know. Hey, they got Straight Outta Compton made. His son played him. I think it all worked out in the end.
Yeah,
But
true.
it is interesting to see. I think this and Ride Along are like the two movies where he really plays a cop. But otherwise, he doesn't usually.
Yeah, I guess I can't think of any other ones he's done. That might come in handy later in Tomato Tomato as well. So shout out Ryan Song, but yeah, shout out Ice Cube. I think he's pretty good in these movies too.
I
Like,
do enjoy him a lot. Like I think he is the perfect police captain here.
yeah, just him yelling at them constantly. I could pretty much watch all day. But yeah, there was a lot of irony there that I didn't think about. So shout out, hey man, maybe he's changed. Maybe he wants to change the drug culture, but I doubt it.
They do I think play Straight Outta Compton for a second in one of the movies. You get just like a little bit of line, and then his wife in the movie says, "Oh, I'm straight out of Compton" in 22 Jump Street as well. So there are references made.
Great line. Shout out Queen Latifah as well with a tiny role.
Little cameo, yeah.
And I guess kind of going along with just like the overall meta-ness of the character too.
Give me a number.
15 days.
I mean, this is a crazy meta movie. I already mentioned a couple times. Fall Guy is as well, which I think is another kind of great connector between these two. Obviously already the TV connection, but them both just being like very, very floored and kind of knowing, what movie they're in, especially the Nick Offerman scenes in both of them, really. In the first one, Nick Offerman's talking about, oh, we had this old program in the 80s, and for some reason they want to bring it back. It's definitely not going to work. And then going to the second one, his only scene in that one is, oh, well, it worked last time, so why not triple you guys' budget? I'm sure it's going to do the exact same thing this time and definitely not be, a much worse movie altogether. So,
And then that leads into them going to the new set where they're like, oh, we made it so much bigger and it's a new church and there was no need for all this extra space, but we've got the money to spend, so we're going to. So yeah, the second one especially is very much with that in mind.
I mean, they have all the new guns, all the new tech. Ice Cube's got a massive new office that looks like an ice cube. You can't beat it, really. So yeah, I think that is definitely one of my favorite things about this franchise overall. It's just its understanding of what kind of movie it's in. But also, I wanted to bring up a question like, when does meta become too much, Corbin? Because I think we have hit this stage sometimes in movies that are very, very meta, where I'm like, I get it. You're trying to be meta. I get it's meta. Stop referencing yourself. Do you think there is a breaking point, or do you think there's one upcoming?
Well, you saw what I wrote in the document, and I think there is one coming shortly this summer. It's called Deadpool and Wolverine. And listen, I will probably enjoy that movie at the end of the day, but I think we are getting to the end of where it's just like, it's okay to be serious. Like, you don't have to be meta and self-referential and ironic all the time. Like, you can treat material as real and have, some reverence for it. Like, we almost got to the point where it's like everything became such a joke and everything became such a unserious endeavor in filmmaking, where sometimes it's like where earnestness, like genuinely earnest, like emotion and drama can be really appreciated. So yeah, I think we are hitting a breaking point. Do you think Deadpool and Wolverine will be the end? Probably not.
I mean, probably not, but I think we are nearing that. I think especially during this time too, like mid 2000s, it was really ramping up. But I think now it can get a little bit too much for me personally. And I think there will be a breaking point eventually. Hopefully it's not Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm definitely very, very excited for that movie. And I think Deadpool, I mean, his character has obviously leaned into meta-ness since the beginning of time with him. So I think it fits that. But I think they just try and stick it in like every sort of genre. And eventually they're just going to hit stuff that it just doesn't mend with well. So I think it's upcoming. I don't know if we've found the breaking point, but I think we are getting very, very close.
Yeah, and I think like the MCU tonality isn't necessarily meta, but it's like adjacent to the same sort of ideas. Then like, people are getting tired of that. It's like when you see the same movies with the same type of jokes where it's like, oh, we're having a fight, but I gotta crack wise real quick while we're punching. Like, it's getting tired. We're things are changing. We're seeing it at the box office. People are wanting to see new things. Maybe these, ideas and forms of comedy are just, getting put into like the Fall Guy or whatever. But I don't know. Things are changing somewhat.
Yeah, I agree. I think the MCU connection there is a really good point. I mean, all their past movies, the past like 3-4 years, like they're so forgettable. You feel like they're the same thing over and over because they're making the same, stupid jokes over and over. So eventually audiences will get tired of it. But yeah, rip the MCU. Hopefully Deadpool can bring it back. But like I said, if it's like really successful, maybe they'll just go all out meta in all their movies and kind of kill it. So it'll be interesting.
Which one's better, Kody?
They push number 16.
For our 16th thought here, 21 or 22 Jump Street?
I mean, I definitely have a preference of the first one over the second one. I don't know. It's tough. I feel like it could be for a lot of people like when they saw them and where they were at in their lives. So I feel like if I watched the first one in high school, I would love it. Or if I watched the second one when I was in college, I would have loved it. Weirdly enough, I watched the second one while I was in high school, and I think I probably watched the first one. Well, I was probably still in high school, so that's probably why I got better. But for me, it's just like the story, it's a bit more connected in the first one. The second one, even the third act where they go to spring break, like you said, I don't really love that for kind of the third act overall. And like Channing deciding to be like a football player in the second act instead of, being an undercover cop, which, that is his job, I thought. But I guess you can just keep your identity and play college football. But I think the first, even the supporting cast, like we said too, Brie Larson, a young Brie Larson, and a prime Dave Franco, a prime Rob Riggle. I think the supporting cast especially boosts up the first one a lot, and I think the parents element too is an underrated part. Like just them like throwing a party while they're trying to trick their Jonah Hill's parents to go away, just like that back and forth with them, and they have to do chores and stuff before they go to prom. Just like all the little moments I think always connect in the first one for me. And there's some stuff in the second one where on rewatch I'm like, that maybe could have been funnier. So I would definitely lean the first one. What about you, man?
I think the conceit, like the setup of them going to college, is better, and I like the avenues that leads to. And I almost wish maybe they should have done the first movie as that, like, hey, high school, sending you adults to high school is weird and creepy. Like, let's not do that. Like, let's just let's send you to college. And you could even do like a community college type thing where you like, it makes sense that they're kind of old, but they're undercover cops. But I think the first one at the end of the day is a better movie. Like, I think the story structure is smarter. I like you said, like that supporting cast of Franco and Brie Larson better than like the love interest in the second movie and the Wyatt Russell, Jimmy Tatro dynamic. I think like you said, the football stuff is kind of stupid. Like I'm not really interested in all that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely pros and cons of both. I think the comedy hits a little funnier in the second one, especially because like you said, there's just so many things that became so iconic, and I don't know. I found myself laughing more watching the second one, but I do think 21 Jump Street is the better movie. Yeah. I will rank it higher on my Letterboxd list.
I did as well. And I think you're right though, too. Like the super like laugh out loud moments, I think there's a few more prevalent like in the second one. Even he slept with the captain's daughter and my name Jeff and the whole opening sequence. Although there are some great moments in the first one too, early on where they're on their bikes and when they arrest the guy and he's popping off a bunch of shots. But yeah, it's tough. Like I said, I mean, I love both of these movies, but from a story structure, like you said, I think the first one's a bit stronger.
Number 17.
So moving on to our next point here. And I've been talking this guy up the whole episode already, but our boy Jonah Hill, I kind of just wanted to shout him out a little bit more. I think just like in Hollywood in general, he is, in my opinion, one of the more underrated guys out there. And kind of the reasoning for that is a bit of his like versatility. I mean, he kind of knew it all. Obviously, kind of came up in Hollywood as, the funny fat guy almost. I mean, that was kind of his character that he got stuck in. But I mean, he broke out of that pretty quickly by doing a lot of good dramatic stuff with a lot of great directors. Obviously, Marty Scorsese, Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, Moneyball, movie obviously we've covered on this pod. He's absolutely amazing in.
The great Bennett Miller.
Honestly, I didn't know who Bennett Miller was until the other day. It's like, who directed Moneyball? Bennett Miller?
We did a whole episode on it, Cody.
I don't think we talked about him much, but
Yeah.
good movie. He's not really doing much today either, which is interesting. But yeah, I think Jonah Hill's awesome, man. And like we had said, I mean, even the driving force kind of behind the scenes, a lot of these projects, especially this one, is kind of where he shines too. I think he did like a Netflix movie called You People recently that I don't think was very good.
Very bad.
So,
very, very
yeah,
bad.
so maybe
Heinous.
he's falling off a little bit, but I just think like he is probably my most underrated guy. I mean, we did underrated actors and he didn't make my list, but I think like underrated people in Hollywood, he'd be near the top of mine for that.
As a person, we can't speak to his interactions with women. Sounds like, you know, he had an ex-girlfriend who had a lot of opinions about him that probably are very valid. And you know, as an actor, as a creative, I do agree with you. Like, I think he is a very smart person who's moved through Hollywood and has picked projects very wisely. Like you said, working with guys like Martin Scorsese, I'm sure was a blessing. He's also got the greatest sister of all, Beanie Feldstein, our favorite from Lady Bird and Booksmart, two movies we've covered on the pod. And yeah, I think he is somebody that when they're in a movie, whether it's, you know, Adam McKay's Don't Look Up or like something that's a new comedy film, like I am interested to see it. He obviously, you know, Super Bad is probably one of the most iconic teen comedies of, you know, the 21st century. And, you know, that's all about Jonah Hill.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like he kind of dominated the comedy genre. Obviously, Super Bad. This Is the End is one of my favorites as well. And he's in so many other small roles and really funny movies too. But yeah, like I said, I mean, the personal stuff too is definitely a good thing to mention because yeah, a bit of a scummy guy, it seems like. So not the best.
Who
But,
isn't?
from a professional standpoint, I'm a fan of the guy, and I think he is one of the massive reasons that these movies work. So shout out to Jonah.
Cody, do you know what the big controversy in air quotes was about the movie You People?
I don't think I do. What was it?
The kiss, the big kiss in the movie was CGI'd. Jonah Hill and let me pull up the actress's name.
What?
Lauren London. When they filmed the scene, they like got close, but they didn't kiss. And then in post, you can watch the scene.
I don't know if I should share this shit, but the final scene, they don't even kiss. I'm there, I'm watching the wedding, and I see them go in for the kiss, and their faces stop like this far. But the movie, you could see their faces come close, and then you could see their faces morph a little bit.
It doesn't look great. I mean, I watched the movie and didn't like go, oh, that's a fake kiss. But then afterwards, and then if you watch it, you're like, yeah, that looks bad. I'll roll the clip here.
Well, I guess good for them that they made it, you know, somewhat believable. But yeah, kind of a weird use of CG. I mean, going over budget because you're using CG on a kiss is not the best probably. But yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever heard of a CGI makeout. So maybe they created something at the same time. Shout out to them.
The beauty of technology.
Something like that. Yeah.
Said something about rule number 18 or whatever.
I want to talk about the actresses who play Jonah Hill's love interests in these two films, 21 and 22 Jump Street. So, of course, we've talked Brie Larson and Amber Stevens. Amber Stevens West now actually are the two actresses. First off, Brie Larson. I think she's actually really good in the first movie, and I think it's probably one of her better roles. Doesn't have a lot of meat on the bones, but in terms of just like casting and what she does well, I think this fits better than like Captain Marvel. It's more in like, I don't know, some earlier stuff for her.
I do like these kinds of roles for her, like you said, versus the Captain Marvel ones, which I feel like she has to play like super serious. I like more kind of fun roles. Her and Scott Pilgrim, I think, is
Short Term 12, Spectacular Now, Don John. Like that was a time that felt better.
I think that's prime Brie Larson right there. And I do think I prefer her over Amber Stevens West. I mean, Amber Stevens West is fine. She's not in a ton of stuff, I don't think, other than this either. But I feel like she is kind of just a one joke kind of character, you know, revolving around her being Ice Cube's daughter. So I think maybe she just didn't get the best, you know, kind of, plot and story wise, which is tough. But It's also funny in the first one because obviously the number one rule of Jump Street is you're not allowed to have sexual relations with any of the students or teachers. So when like the whole promposal thing is going on, like he doesn't even seal it with a kiss because I think he's still worried about having relations further. But then at the end they do smooch a little bit, so he breaks the rules. But I thought that their chemistry was pretty good too.
Yeah, I think they work out pretty well. They do make it clear where she's like, I'm 18, so it's not creepy at
Yeah.
all and everything.
Sure.
I think they're a fine pairing. I don't know, Jonah Hill and Brie Larson, whatever. In the second one, I actually like their chemistry a little bit better.
Yeah.
Amber Stevens and him, but she really did not have a career outside of this film. Before this movie, she was in a couple things, but in very small roles. She plays Ariel in The Amazing Spider-Man. No idea. She also plays cheerleader in Tokyo Drift. So she's around.
That's amazing.
But and then didn't really do a lot after this movie either. I think the thing that sucks, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is just like there really is no resolution to her and Jonah Hill's relationship whatsoever. Like that plot point is just never returned to in the film.
I mean, he just lied to her, and I think it was a pretty clean break. I would assume they wouldn't pursue it, especially with her being the captain's
Captain
daughter.
Dickinson.
Yeah, so shout out. I want to ask you too. Do you think Jillian Jacobs and Jonah Hill? You think they had good chemistry in that one fight they had at the end? They were going back and forth between like fighting or making out.
I thought that was so strange.
Yeah.
I did not really remember that from this movie. Jillian Bell, not Jillian Jacobs. Jillian Jacobs
whatever.
is
Who is that?
from
Somebody.
Community.
Oh yeah, shout out.
Britta.
6 seasons in another season.
But yeah, Jillian Bell, simply the main villain of this movie, I think probably is the weakest part.
I agree. I was gonna say I don't really love her character in this movie. I think like her jokes like they don't really land for me. Like in the beginning of the movie where she's kind of like spying on them hanging out or whatever, and then at the end she just turns out to be
okay, she's not spying on them hanging out. She's in her dorm room. To be fair, as two former roommates, Kody, I think we can be honest that she has a right to be in her room.
I mean, how do they not know like she was there, or if they did
right?
know?
I mean, she did just like sit in the room while they fucked all night.
Yeah, like give her a heads up at least. I mean, that's common courtesy. Then of course she turns out to be the twist, as she's Ghost's daughter. But I don't know. I haven't seen a ton with her, but I didn't love her. She'd probably go in my worst actor list out of these two movies. So shout out to her.
Number 19.
I was gonna say, moving on to the next topic here. Going back to the directors. This is maybe a controversial take altogether. I don't know, but I feel like a little bit that this duo here, what is it, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, I believe are there. Obviously, I feel like just better known by myself as Lord and Miller, the great creator duo. I think maybe, or my question to you is, have they peaked as a directing duo? Because obviously they've done a few good things overall. I feel like the standouts are these two films. They did the Lego movie, which was kind of a massive hit when nobody expected it. And then obviously they were going to go into the whole Star Wars field with Solo, a Star Wars story.
I mean, they directed half that movie.
Yeah, I mean,
they left in the middle of filming.
It was mostly their movie. I want a Snyder cut version of that movie from Lord and Miller. How come we don't have that? But I mean, obviously they left due to creative differences from that. And I feel like in a sense they got put in director jail a little bit. They haven't done anything massive together since that. I mean, obviously with something such a massive budget with a big studio and then kind of parting halfway through just because they couldn't get along, I feel like it's a massive red flag maybe for other studios. I mean, obviously they're still producing and writing. Most recently they did Across the Spider-Verse, which is absolutely perfection.
That would be my big counter to you, Cody, of have they peaked? And no, I think they are actively like working very much. They're very heavily, listen, they're not the directors of Cross or Into the Spider-Verse, but they were the writers and the producers and the
everything else.
Awful bosses. I was trying to think of a way to say it, in a better, the guys who are saying work 50-hour work weeks and get the animations in, and it created something beautiful. And it's a very tough situation. The world of animation, world of visual effects is very much a gross one right now within the industry. But I do agree with you. This is definitely a high, but I got to disagree and say it's the peak. I think Spider-Verse is probably the peak.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair. Obviously I love that movie, so I can talk shit on it. But I don't know, do you think they'll get back into directing as well? Because I feel like just like that brand name of like, oh, Lord and Miller are attached. Like I get excited in general. I'm like, oh, it's probably gonna be pretty good. But I don't know if they are gonna go back to like the director's seat, which is kind of sad, obviously. But maybe writing is kind of just more of their niche.
So yeah, I mean, the last movie they directed was 22 Jump Street. They haven't
Yeah.
directed a ton of films. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the Lego movie, notably the two major ones. But the thing on the horizon is this Project Hail Mary film, which is based on Andy Weir's novel, who's the writer of The Martian, the Matt Damon movie. With Ryan Gosling set to star. So Phil Lord, Chris Miller directing and producing. Drew Goddard, who I believe wrote The Martian, is
Daredevil.
Yeah.
Producer
Cabin in the
Daredevil.
Woods guy. He's writing the script. They're doing that as their next film that I think is supposed to come out in 2026, maybe 2025. I don't know. And then also the book that I've read, Artemis, which is another Andy Weir novel. They were supposed to be doing that originally, and that got I think lost in the Fox Disney merger a little bit. And then now they've turned to this other Andy Weir book.
Hey man, Andy Weir, he'll keep pumping them out.
Yeah, he's a good. They're great, but I've read Artemis and I've read The Martian. I love both those books. And then our great, compadre Jackson Miron has raved about Project Hail Mary as how great it is. So I'm excited for that coming soon.
Well, awesome. I'm excited for that too, because I didn't know much about the source material or anything, but hey, maybe they'll be back and I'm here for it. So, especially after Spider-Verse, I mean, they should have as many opportunities as they would want. But I think they may have peaked already. Well, time will tell, but that's my hot take for this episode.
I mean, I think they probably have, but I just don't think it's this film.
What else did you do? At a number 20.
As we're nearing the end of our thoughts, we hit 20 of 22 here. Kody, I ask you, do these movies' endings work? Are they successful endings?
It's a good question. And I feel like from a comedy perspective, yes. But from a dramatic perspective, I would say likely no. I mean, like you kind of aforementioned, there's no like massive resolutions in either one of these movies. The first one kind of ends. I mean, it's obviously Prom's the third act, and they take down the bad guys. Rob Riggle gets his dick shot off. I mean, that's pretty funny. But after that, I mean, it's just like, oh, Jonah Hill and Brie Larson kiss, which I guess that would be kind of the dramatic ending. And like I said earlier, I don't really care about that. I mean, it's kind of a fake relationship to begin with, and I think she's like high or she's hammered or something. So that doesn't work for me a ton. Jumping to the second movie, like we said before, the third act is in spring break. Similar, obviously, they take down the bad guys. Jillian Bell, gets arrested, all that good stuff. And I guess the taking of the bullets things is kind of a fun resolution. But I mean, do you think it's a good resolution? Either one of them?
No, I mean, of course they have in both these movies. They're like Dark Knight of the Soul. The two break up. They're not friends anymore, and then they have to come back together to defeat the evil guy in the end. And I just think the third acts are weak in both, and particularly in 22 Jump Street, it's really bad. And it was like, I actually last night I watched. I got home off my 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift, and I got home and fired up 22 Jump Street, and I watched the first whatever and had 30 minutes left of the third act, and I was just like, I cannot finish this tonight, and I saved it for today, and it was kind of rough to watch that ending. It's a weak action set piece with not as much comedy, and then again, no dramatic resolutions. Nothing happens between Jonah Hill and Ice Cube's daughter. There's really no even like final interaction whatsoever.
Yeah.
And Ice Cube doesn't even really have much to say about it in the final scene. It's just kind of haphazard. They just end things very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting too, because like I feel like more of the tension in the second one is the relationship between Channing and Jonah versus, like you said, Brie Larson was more kind of intertwined with that super emotional stuff in the first one. But it's more of like them kind of working out. They were a couple counseling. They were hanging off choppers together. He was grabbing his dick, trying to find a grenade. So I think it was more focused on them, which I mean, again, there's nothing really dramatic about it, and it's kind of just repeating the first one again, just not as good, which they do mention. But yeah, I don't think they really cared about the writing that much either. So I think that definitely played into it.
And in grabbing the grenade, they do the thing that they do in both of them where they just like kill the bad guys and then everything is solved.
It's true. They don't really arrest those guys. They're dead in the ocean. That's kind of tough. Shout out Ghost.
I mean, hey, it's the way it goes.
Not great police work there, honestly, though. Yeah.
We talked about it in our Talladega Nights episode. Like, it's tough to end a comedy. Like, you can have a great premise and setup, but it's tough to like get to a third act that feels worthwhile in like any sort of resolution.
Yeah. I think that is a great comparison too, because in both of these movies, I think the first couple acts are like pretty good. And then third act, it's like, okay, we really don't know how to end it. And yeah, Talladega Nights is is a living proof of that. The third act is, or even the second act and the third act are pretty bad. But yeah, comedies, man, you just run out of funny stuff eventually and you don't know where to go. So it's tough to do, but I think these movies, the first two acts carried enough that I still enjoy them.
And then the credits roll, Cody, and things
True.
get lit.
Like Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street.
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously in 22 Jump Street, the credits may be up there with some of my favorites of all time. Both movies do have like good songs at the end, which is always a must for me. But obviously, I mean, going through the cast and talking about, the next movies that are coming up in the Jump Street franchise. It's just so much fun. There's so many just super small cameos. We can run through them here quickly, but obviously one of my favorites off the bat is when they go to culinary school and Bill Hader.
That was the first one I had highlighted as my
Yeah.
favorite.
Bill Hader's the bad guy, and he gets a knife thrown through him. It's really fun. I mean, you have so many others. I'm not even going to try and name off all the different schools, but it's literally every single one that you could think of. You got Anna Faris with a small cameo. Seth Rogen comes in at one point and
29 Jump Street Sunday School with Seth Rogen.
he has to replace Jonah Hill because there was a contract dispute. And the next one after that, I'm guessing, Jump Street 30, Jonah Hill's back, and it's like, oh, what are you talking about? I didn't miss any movies. So I feel like there's just so many jokes, and like honestly too, I would want to see some of these sequels just from like the little stuff that we did get. But did you have a favorite cameo?
I mean, Jump Street Generations sucked. I hated that one,
Yeah.
but it was the old school, the back to the TV show cameo. So good for them. I liked the video game. That was fun. I would play that.
With the octopus as their sidekick?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
But
That was
Magic
the
School.
animation, actually.
Magic
Yeah.
School is what I was really into. I want to see 41 Magic School.
I back that. I think a fun one too was they did like a Top Gun like fight school. I think
Yep.
that would, especially if they didn't made a sequel today, that would be really fun. Kind of just riffing off of obviously, Tom Cruise and all that jazz. But yeah, I mean, there's endless
2021 Jump Street,
Yeah.
the Space Odyssey.
21. I would watch that in a heartbeat too. So yeah, I think they have opportunities for sequels. You could be like a legacy sequel for this, like 10 years down the road in any of those, and I would kind of be on board. But they could also do a sequel with some other things, right, Corbin? I heard some rumblings through some emails.
Well, that brings us to our very final thought, our 22nd thought on Jump Street, Cody.
Number 22.
The future of Jump Street and what could have been, what could have happened. I think we've talked about this probably like 6 different times over the course of our 7 seasons. So we're getting our mention early out in season 7. But yes, there was a Men in Black and 21-22 Jump Street crossover that was conceived of, thought about, in development. It was a Jonah Hill idea originally, I believe. He was the one, and he was big story script influence on both of these films as well. So it makes sense that he would kind of be the guy who'd be like, where do we take this next? Let's do Men in Black. But in 2014, the Sony emails were leaked, and it was revealed that this was in development. Hill sent an email to Pascal calling the idea clean and rad and powerful. But Columbia Pictures production president Hannah Minghella pointed out that we didn't have a script yet, so we will be only greenlighting the movie off of a concept and talent involved. Later, there was a script that happened that Phil Lord and Chris Miller have talked about having read to see where they would go. The idea was like they're doing the medical school thing, and then they encounter some aliens, and they have to kind of like get sucked into the world of Men in Black. They mentioned some joke about like, oh, Men in Black is like a black belt that you have to earn. So they would start out in like powder blue suits. That sounded fucking awful, but whatever. In 2016, though, 2 years later, they're kind of moving forward with this idea. Sony's like, it's MIB 23. James Bobin, the director of The Muppets, is going to direct the film. And then like 4 or 5 months later, Jonah Hill's like, actually, I doubt the movie will get made. They're trying to make all these deals, but it's impossible with all the Men in Black stuff. The Jump Street films were so fun to make, and the whole joke of them was that they were making fun of remakes and sequels and reboots. And then now it's become a giant sequel reboot, said Hill. It's almost become what we were making fun of. And it's hard to maintain that joke when it's so high stakes. So I think he kind of was like, there's so much like deals being involved. Sonnenfeld, I'm sure, had to be Barry Sonnenfeld, director of the 3 Men in Black films, probably had to be like heavily consulted. Like there's a lot at stake in combining these two giant franchises. And he was like, this was all just a joke to me in the first place. And I feel like it loses that fun when we get so serious with it and become so deep in the IP world.
Well said. I think in concept it could be really fun, but like you're saying, I mean, once they probably got into it a lot more and realized like what the execution would have looked like, I think it's probably a smart thing to kind of.
It's an all-time great what if.
Yeah, I mean, I would watch it in a heartbeat. I'm completely on board with any sort of sequel with that involved. I mean, I don't know if like those two franchises like mix that well. Really.
They just don't make like. Why would 21 Jump? It's really just like you want to put. Why not just make a Men in Black movie with Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill? Like you could just do that.
I mean, you could definitely do it. Just have them be like the new agents. I'd watch that too.
Instead, we got fucking Men in Black International.
Yeah,
which also has twins as the villains. Weirdly,
they can make that connection to transfuse the universes. That'd be perfect. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know if it would have worked, but I definitely would have been here for it. But I'm kind of glad that they ended up not doing it because, like Jonah, even you said in the quotes there, like it probably would have gone badly, and they probably would have lost money, which is never good. And especially too if the Men in Black people were like, we're doing action comedy, but we're still going to kind of take it serious and not do all the meta stuff that you guys are doing. I don't know, like I said, if that blend in these franchises would have worked if you kind of cut out the meta-ness entirely. I think this movie gets a lot worse if you don't have that stuff in it, which can be hard.
Yeah. And then, of course, once Jonah Hill's out, there's really no reason in even trying to make it. So then Sony was like, well, what do? We do the all-female spinoff version. So that has been what has been in development really since like 2015, 2016. At one point, it was supposed to be featuring Tiffany Haddish and Awkwafina was the pairing that they were calling out. I could be into that.
I like that.
In 2020, there was a Deadline article that was like 21 Jump Street, Now for Her Pleasure was the title. 21 Jump Street, Now for Her Pleasure. But then that like got deleted and retracted. I don't know if it was just like not true or Sony was like, take that down. We don't want to release that yet. But then there really hasn't been like words since then. So yeah.
That's interesting. I would have liked to seen gender swap kind of situation there too. I mean, Tiffany Haddish, I think would have been really fun in that role as well. So maybe that'll come up in the future, but I think they have options 100%. And I don't know if anybody is clamoring for a Jump Street sequel other than myself. But like I said, give it a few more years, do a legacy sequel, kind of when the time's right. There's no good like parody movies these days. So I feel like they can kind of latch onto that or even reboot it entirely, and I'd still probably be on board. So I'm definitely open to sequels, but if you're going to do it, you just got to do it right.
Really surprised they have not done something yet. Yeah. I'm sure within the next 5 years, there will be some sort of spinoff or reboot or something.
At least give us that animated series with the octopus.
Executive producer Jonah Hill. I can see it now.
Yeah.
Well, Kody, that was 22 thoughts on Jump Street. I've got nothing else to say about this film, honestly. I think we covered it all.
I love this format. I think we got literally every single thought we could have had about these movies out. So love that. And yeah, shout out to the Jump Street films because a couple of my faves and just a nostalgic beat for me. So I appreciate you letting me do it for the episode.
Let's jump on over to our game. Tomato. Kody, what's going on?
Well, tomato, tomato, tomato. I'm throwing tomatoes.
We're playing twice. We're going to do 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street. And we're going to start with a random number. What's your guess? What do you think it's going to be?
I'll guess 3.
It was 1.
Oh.
So Jonah Hill is going to be
Billing.
the guy.
Okay.
So what we're doing here, folks, is each trying to pick 2 Jonah Hill films that are furthest apart in Rotten Tomatoes score. Kody, you can go first.
I believe I was the first pick. I feel like the key in this game, not to give away, I guess, strategy beats, but it just depends if somebody's in a lot of good movies or if somebody's in a lot of bad movies. Kind of just picking the one that they're in a little bit less. I feel like Jonah Hill's in a lot of good movies. I mean, the one we just named, what the fuck is it called? I already forgot the name of it.
I got nothing for you.
I mean, he's been in so much. There has to be a couple stinkers that I'm not thinking about. Oh, I just thought of a good one. Okay. I'm gonna pick with the first pick here. I'm gonna go with The Watch, which I believe should be pretty low on the spectrum. It was a Ben Stiller, Jonah
Vince
Hill
Vaughn picture.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn. They were the neighborhood watch, and then some aliens came in. Really, really bad.
That's gonna be a tough one to beat. That's a 16%, Kody.
Ooh, tomato, baby.
I really don't know if I'm gonna be able to find anything that bad for Jonah Hill. I'll start on the high end of the spectrum, and I'll just go Wolf of Wall Street to get me some real solid points here.
Smart man.
80%. Jesus Christ. Okay, well,
it's only at 80.
Not good.
Wow.
Only 80.
I'll go Moneyball with my second pick. I think that should be around the same, if not higher. I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a death blow right there.
Gotta be in the 90s.
94%.
Ooh, tomato. What's your low pick?
Okay, well, I literally don't think it's even possible. It is. I have to get a 2% for me to win. Since I know I'm not going to get 2%, I'm just going to throw out a Sausage Party because I think they're doing like a Sausage Party TV show or something that's coming out soon.
Yeah, they're doing some sort of sequel.
And Sausage Party, Kitty, 82%.
I was going to say that might be higher.
Higher than the Wolf of Wall Street. Okay, well, real good showing for me. Negative 2% is
what was that movie you just did with the CGI kiss? What was that called?
Oh, You People.
You People. I kept thinking of Funny People. I couldn't remember the title of it. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, but I 40%. You with The Watchmen, you nailed it.
The Watchmen. Good pull.
Just looking at Jonah Hill films real quick to kind of see the highs and the lows.
Oh, The Sitter. That's got to be pretty low too. I'm just thinking of random stuff.
Don't Look Up, 55%. The
That's
Beach Bum, 57%.
Don't Look Up is at 55% critics?
Yes, Kody, it is.
Oh my god. The fuck?
The Sitter, Kody, 21%. You're all over that. Very
that's
low.
A bad one.
Strange Wilderness is a movie with 2%. Evan Almighty, he's in that, 24%.
Ooh, I like that movie too.
Accepted, a movie I've seen, 38%. Not good. And then the highs, Knocked Up, 89. Superbad has an 88, of course. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, 83. Moneyball, 94, like we talked about. Jump Street, 21 is an 85. 22, 84.
Wow, nice.
This Is the End in 82. I mean, he's got a lot of certified fresh movies. Hail Caesar at an 86. The Lego Batman movie to 90.
Nice.
The film he directed about his therapist. What a great guy. Directing a movie about his own therapist, 96%.
Shout out to his therapist.
So that Jonah Hill's a tough one. Let's now roll for 22 Jump Street, and hopefully I can put up a better showing. Number 10. Okay.
Uh-oh. It might be Dax.
1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nick Offerman, Kody. We get to have some fun. Okay. Here we go.
Interesting.
Nick Offerman
Obviously,
films.
More of a TV guy.
Well, I get the first pick here, and I'm going to throw out a little
shit.
I don't know if we could name 4 Nick Offerman. That's going to be a tough one. But I'm going to start with We're the Millers.
That's a good one. I don't even know if I would have pulled that. Nick Offerman.
I was worried you would just pull it, and it's a 48%. So I'm starting low. I like it.
Okay. Nick Offerman. I mean, Parks and Rec. You got The Last of Us. That one episode.
I think you can pick The Last of Us if you want to as a TV show.
I mean, I could just cop out. I'll take 21 Jump Street, right? We can cop out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, you know what it is.
I can't think of any other Nick Offerman movies. I mean, there's got to be other stuff in this. I mean, it's your pick, obviously.
I'm gonna go Civil War. 81%.
Nice.
The President. It leaves the door open for you. Basically, you've got to get a 44% or lower movie for Nick Offerman, which definitely exists, I'm sure.
I mean, if I come up with a stinker, yeah, I feel like that would be pretty easy. I mean, you did say 22 Jump Street was what, 1% lower?
Not the move.
But let me think.
Ooh, okay. Some animated films, some animated sequels.
Okay. I mean, going back to Lord Miller, is he in Cloudy with a Chance too? Is that a thing? Or am I thinking of something else?
No.
He's in The Founder. That's higher. I'll pick The Founder. Actually, I don't know. It'll probably be similar. I can't think of any other movies he's in.
You pulled a Nick Offerman film at the very least. He is in The Founder. That's an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. So,
also not much different.
So a four gap there. So I do take that one home with the 33% gap. Some Nick Offerman films: Lucy in the Sky with a 21%. That's a 2019 film. He's in Dumb Money, which has an 84, which is high. He's in the Lego Movie 2, the second part, which has an 84% high. And then some stinkers really come in. Ice Age Collision Course, 18%. Hotel Transylvania 2, 57%.
Okay.
We're the Millers is definitely down there at the bottom. The Men Who Stare at Goats, 51%. Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous, 15%.
Hey, what, man? Nick Offerman, he just needs more roles. He does have a great voice, so I feel like the animated stuff definitely makes sense. But happy to see him in Civil War, even though it was a small role. Just give him more to do in Hollywood because the guy's so talented. But yeah, that's a tough round. When you get number 10, you expect a tougher round, I think.
Kody, it's a split series. Should we take one more game on and just
let's do it? But we got to decide it, man. We got to have winners and losers on this podcast.
Let's just do Channing Tatum, Kody. Let's do Channing Tatum to wrap things off.
Sounds good. Okay, and
you get the first pick.
What a nice guy. Okay, Channing Tatum. He has been a lot. Okay, let's think. Okay. I wonder if those were that bad though. Thinking of the dance movie that he's in. Was he in?
Ooh, we got to name the right one.
He was in Step It Up, I believe.
I don't know if he was in the first one, but we will. Are you saying the first movie? Or are you saying?
Well, all the damn dance movies have the same titles too. I'll stray away. I'll let you maybe take a peek at that if you'd want it then. He's in so much stuff. I don't want to risk it.
He is in the first one, Kody.
Okay, I'll take.
So I think you can.
I think that's
the movie's called Step Up.
Step Up. I apologize for all the Step It Up stands out there. I think that's got to be pretty low. Maybe 40s, 50s.
Iconic film. Really hard to find on IMDb for whatever reason. Here we go. 21% for Step Up, Kody.
Didn't get the title right, but probably gonna win the game.
Starting off with a banger. Channing Tatum is in Dear John. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, he is. And that has a 29%. I am in the game. Let's go. We are alive. 8% difference to play with here, Kody.
we got to go good Channing now. Whole different level. I mean, these would be pretty hot, but obviously don't want to use them. I mean, same thing. I feel like voice acting wise, he's got to be in some stuff. I don't think the first Magic Mike would be that high, would it? I don't think so, but maybe. I think I'm gonna play it safe and go with the movie we've talked about already, and go with This Is the End, where he has a pretty small role. It's basically a cameo where he is. Well, I don't even know how to explain it, but he is. What's that guy's name? He's his pet. Danny McBride. He's Danny
I don't even
McBride.
really remember what
He's got
what
a
he does
he's
in
got
the
a
movie.
gimp suit on basically. He's in the movie.
Gotcha.
Not very long, but I think we mentioned that was like 80, 82, somewhere in that range.
82% for
Yeah.
This Is the End. So
Not bad.
61 difference there between your two movies. Meaning I need to get a 91 basically.
I feel like he's in something better and I just can't think of it. So there's gotta be an opportunity here.
So I'm sure one of the Magic Mikes is, I think the first one is rated highly. I want to say the third or the second one is kind of low. And I was maybe considering doing that. I'm just going to look at it right now. It's not my pick. It's 65. Yeah. It's not low enough.
Okay.
But what I'm thinking is that dog movie he was in, because I think that did have like a weirdly high Rotten Tomatoes score. Like I think it got like good. A 90%. And I believe it was just called Dog, right? Yeah. Dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good show.
77. Fuck. Okay. Well, I didn't win. Damn. I thought Dog. I thought the people loved the dog. I thought it lived at the end, but
that was a great poll.
89% on the fan score there. So
what was the first Magic Mike? I mean, McConaughey is there, so it's got to be like mid 80s. I feel like
the first Magic Mike is 78%.
Nice. Oh, yeah. I mean, respect for a Magic Mike movie. That's pretty dang good.
Hey, Steven Soderbergh, The Last Dance, 48%. Could have gone there. Could have gone there. Just some highlights for Tatum. He definitely does have some stinkers. Kingsman: The Golden Circle is a 51%. Ooh. Jupiter Ascending, 28%. Ooh. White House Down, 51%. G.I. Joe Retaliation, 29%.
Nice.
The Vow, 32%. Dear John, like we said. G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra, 33%. She's the Man, 44%.
I like that.
Havoc, 45%. Supercross the movie, 5%. But you know, the highs, Haywire, 80%. Side Effects, 82%. The Lego Movie, he is also in that as well, 96%. We should have just picked the Lego Movie for all these.
I forgot about that.
And The Lost City with a 79% as well.
Oh wow, I never saw that either. I guess that was good. Fair enough.
He will be in 3 movies this year. One of them has already come out, Spaceman, which has a 49%. Fly Me to the Moon and Blink Twice. Fly Me to the Moon is the movie that is currently on Mina's fantasy filmography team with him and ScarJo. Space Race, they're faking the moon landing. What's your prediction for that Rotten Tomatoes score?
I don't think it's going to be very good. I'd say 45, 50, somewhere in that range. I didn't like the trailer. I felt like their chemistry was off.
59%. And then Blink Twice, which was formerly known as Pussy Island, which is the Zoe Kravitz directorial debut. He's kind of doing like a
I saw that
Weinstein thing, maybe, but it's like a thriller movie. What do you think about that? Where's that going to come in?
I think that'll come back higher. I have confidence in Zoe Kravitz to get around like the 60, 70 range, somewhere in there, I would think. But
I'm feeling high 70s, low 80s.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that, for the Fall Guy, and it surprised me.
It looks interesting.
It looked better than I thought it would. So
I drafted it last year, so a long time ago.
Well, I lost another movie. Freaking Ultimate Nights got delayed, so
it did?
Picking that up, yeah. Shout out to that trade where all the movies I got delayed. So thanks, Mina. But
and then the Fall Guy is like the second highest scoring movie in the.
I don't know how because it bombed, but yeah, fair enough. But
it's got like the thing about the Fall Guy is that it got good critic reviews and good audience scores, and so it's just like everybody likes it.
Yeah,
and the 10 bonus points.
Those are important. Godzilla,
head to head, steal it. But head to head is huge. Head to head is huge. You got to have head to head movies. Kody, let's finish things off with our weekly watches. What have you been into?
How's the movie? What movie?
Yes, I'll sprinkle some actual stuff I've been into recently with some stuff I saw before in between seasons. But obviously recently too, it was May 4th. So I had to, divulge into a little bit of Star Wars to kind of celebrate. And I actually checked out Rogue One, which I wanted to rewatch for a while. I really love this movie. I think, honestly, I've really been debating it. I think I like it a little bit better than Return of the Jedi, which may be controversial, but I think just from a visual perspective, it's awesome. Other than the some of the weird CGI faces, shout out Leia. But I think story-wise, it is just really, really cool too.
Right? No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that one, it looks better than Leia's, and I mean, I like seeing Grand Moff Tarkin. I think he's a cool character, and he definitely needs to be involved in this movie. But just like recast him. I don't think anybody cares that much. But other than that, kind of small thing, I think the cast is awesome. I mean, even like a young Riz Ahmed, which I kind of forgot was in it. Daisy Ridley, obviously, and then the spin-off, of course, with Andor, who's a good character. And then you also have K2SO, Alan Tudyk, in a really good role too. Even like you got Mads Mikkelsen in a tiny role, you got Forrest Whitaker in a tiny role. Like you have good actors in like roles that really don't even matter that much in this movie. So shout out to the casting, but yeah, I love that. I definitely recommend that. And then another recent thing I checked out actually was the Jerry Seinfeld directed Unfrosted.
Ooh,
Have you seen this, Corbin?
I haven't checked this one out yet.
Oh
Cody,
my
tell me about it.
God. I would not recommend it. Honestly, it may be my least favorite movie or least favorite movie of 2024 so far. I don't know, maybe I just watched it at a bad time, but I mean, it's just
I don't
Jerry,
think you're alone.
it's Jerry Seinfeld and Melissa McCarthy in like a cereal war, obviously, just trying to create a Pop-Tart before um Amy Schumer, before Amy Schumer. I mean, and I'm not a big Amy Schumer guy. You got Jim Gaffigan in there too, which I was never really a big fan to begin with. So a lot of fun cameos. I mean, all like everybody from comedy is coming into this movie. Because I mean, freaking Jerry Seinfeld's directing. Why wouldn't you? But none of it really works for me. There's even some like mascot wars going on, which is obviously like making a comment about like the raids on the Capitol and stuff, which is just stupid, and I didn't really like any of it. You'll have to watch it, Corbin, because it's very interesting. But I would not recommend it.
Okay.
So don't check that out. But some other stuff too that I wanted to shout out that I really enjoyed over the off season. Going through these pretty quickly. First one, I checked out Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is actually a French movie, which I'm shocked Corbino hasn't watched. But I actually really liked it. And I think you would really, really like it as well, Corbin. But I guess, I mean, if you are okay with, reading subtitles for an entire movie, go check that out because it is absolutely amazing. And then I also watched The Thing for the first time. We were talking about Wyatt Russell. Got to bring up my boy Kurt. I think that's probably my favorite Kurt Russell movie that I've ever seen now. Just the tension and like the practical effects are absolutely crazy. And it's kind of inspired me to want to watch a bunch more of John Carpenter stuff. So definitely check that out as well. And then, the last thing too, I checked out Warrior, which is a sports movie, obviously UFC with Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. I really, really like that as well. I think just from a kind of fighting movie perspective, like bringing together like two brothers who kind of hate each other is really fun. And it did make me tear up at a couple moments. So good sports movies, that's what you got to do. So I definitely recommend that as well.
I've heard nothing but good things, Cody. Definitely will encourage you along the way through your John Carpenter journey. Vampires, not a great one, but They Live is an absolute banger. So
I have seen They Live. I do like Mr. Rowdy.
But I think we've said it. We'll do some John Carpenter here in season 7. We'll talk because the Thing is my favorite horror movie for sure. It's great.
It is awesome. Yeah.
Movies that I've checked out beyond The Fall Guy, of course, and doing our little bit of our Dune rewatch for our last episode. Mina and I have been journeying down the Planet of the Apes franchise hole, just kind of getting ready, getting prepped for the kingdom, man. Are you ready?
I'm not ready yet. I think I might have to watch some of the older movies because you and our compadres are doing the same, so I'll feel left out. But yeah, you've been grinding through them.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually be making a little guest appearance over on the RCR to discuss some Planet of the Apes, just because I knew I couldn't get those thoughts out on this podcast.
You love the apes so much.
No, we've done our apes discussion. We did our whole Dawn War, sequel, second part of a trilogy thing with Across the Spider-Verse. But yeah, if you want to hear about the new Apes movie and just kind of the lineage of the Apes films, definitely go check that out next week. Yeah, the Apes movies are a fun time. They're a really interesting journey in like old sci-fi, and especially you being a Star Trek fan, Cody, like you'll be into the Apes movies.
Yeah, I think I'll enjoy. I mean, I love Dawn. That is obviously go check out our episode, like you said, on that in the past. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to run through these because you guys have been having fun comments, and yeah, they look kind of wacky, which is right up my alley.
Yeah, and really the original of the original 5 films, like 3 through 5, are pretty strong inspirations for the new reboot trilogy, really more than anything else. So
Caesar,
you can definitely see that thread there. On top of that, a couple other things that I saw the TV Glow, which is a movie on your fantasy filmography team, Kody. Mixed on this film, very mixed on the film. James Coenberg, the filmmaker, their work is inexplicable in a really certain way. They're able to capture emotions that like I don't really ever see represented on screen, and like feelings of otherness and anxiety, and like living in the internet age or the age of media and television. And like there's just so many great ideas that I can really appreciate this film. And We're All Going to the World's Fair, which is one of their earlier films, the one they made prior to this, which is a lot more independent, slower budget. Both deal with these feelings of like being isolated and turning to TV shows or turning to the internet to kind of find solace and find yourself, but then also finding like the horrors and the horrors of everyday life. This movie, I enjoyed parts of it a lot. There was a central performance from Justice Smith that I struggled with greatly, and by the end of it, I was like, man, I really need this movie to be over because it was long. And Mina felt the same way.
I saw Mina didn't like it at all.
Mina really didn't like it. After the film, we actually got to have a Q&A and sit and hear what Jane had to say and talk about the film. And seeing the thought process behind it always, I think, makes me better appreciate a film and kind of understand a little bit where the auteur is coming from, the filmmaker's coming from. So I can appreciate a lot about it, and I look forward to like a wider audience seeing it because it's just open in New York and LA right now. And I'm just curious to see, just like all the analyzation and the way that people are able to connect with this and maybe find themselves or see themselves in different moments with it. And that's what filmmaking is all about, and movies are.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the trailer. It looks pretty out there. So I don't know how well like, the general audiences will connect with it, but I'm still excited to see it. That is cool with the directors too.
Paul Schrader, writer of Taxi Driver and, director of Master Gardener, First Reformed, old school guy, big Facebook users always saying some wild shit, went on Facebook and was like, James Coenberg is the filmmaking voice of this generation, the most innovative person, like nothing but praise for the film. So Paul Schrader's a fan.
It's been getting like hype at festivals and stuff. So I don't know. It just looks kind of like really insane. So I'm excited to see it, but we'll see.
May the 4th, Kody. I also watched some Star Wars 2 days late, but I went and saw The Phantom Menace as it's back in theaters. Had a fun time. This is pod racing, my guy. It's brilliant stuff.
Was the dual fates on the big screen epic?
It really was. It was enjoyable. And the one thing I'll say, I really critiqued a big thing about Dune Part 2 that I didn't like was the crowd shots on Gady Prime. And the crowd shots in the pod racing scene, impeccable. Like they look great, Kody. There is a ton of people. Like it's really good stuff. George, he knows what he's doing.
Oh, he wanted to fit as many characters as he could for the toys, but yeah, I guess that's a positive for Phantom Menace. Not too many, but that's one.
I have 4, 5, 9 words for you for my final film, and they are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Secret of the Ooze.
Ninja Rap,
baby. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. Rewatched that. Got my my DVD Blu-ray triple feature of the 3 90s Turtles films. And the first one is like genuinely like I think a masterpiece of independent filmmaking, like one of the true like first independent hits in that way, and also like one of the first like major comic book adaptations that really took off for a mainstream audience. The second one is just like capitalizing and cashing in on like, oh, kids love this shit. Let's make a movie and put Vanilla Ice in at the end of it. And it is much weaker, sadly, but it still a very nostalgic thing from my childhood, and I love the Turtles.
Yeah, I back it. Like I said, not as good as the original, but still has some redeeming qualities, and yeah, much more of a kids movie than the first one did.
Have you seen the third Ninja Turtle movie?
I have, yeah. The suits in that one, I feel like are are very, very bad.
Well,
And
yeah,
the plot-
Jim Henson had died at that point,
Yeah.
so it's just like, you know what, you don't have the master anymore.
and the plot's terrible too. I mean, it's kind of like Star Trek 4, but like 10 times worse. So yeah.
Well, yeah, they go they go back to feudal Japan rather
Japan,
than
right.
1960
Not
San
Fran,
Francisco to save the world.
Time
That'd be
travel.
better. If the whale,
It would.
if the turtles went to San Fran in the 60s to save the whales, I'd be into it.
I'd watch it.
But who wouldn't? This has been a great episode on the Jump Street franchise as well as the Fall Guy. Any final words to leave the people with, Cody?
No, like I said, man, I appreciate going in the Jump Street franchise with me, and I think we've had a couple great episodes back to back here to start off the season. So I'm excited. Obviously, stay tuned for a lot more fun stuff here in season 7. But yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I thought it was a ton of fun.
My name is Jeff.
My name's Jeff. Peace.
Peace.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.